Hello my friends, welcome to my corner. I just realized that last month I bought a lot more books than I usually do. That doesn't mean that I spent a lot of money, but I did end up with a pile of books taller than the ones that I usually get. So I just wanted to shoot this very informal video to share with you what books I bought. And hopefully this shows how random my reading habits are, or at least that's the way I see myself. Sometimes, you know how it is, you think of yourself as a random, inclusive reader, and maybe other people can put you in a category very easily. At least I perceive myself as a very open reader, and I have many interests. So hopefully this bundle of books that I'm going to share with you will reflect that. So the first one that I have is this classic Oil by Upton Sinclair. I have to say that I usually do not like to buy books that feature the cover of the movie in the cover of the book, if you know what I mean. That is a marketing strategy, and I really try to avoid, promoting that. But in this case, I was able to find this book for $1 at my local library, so I was like, I could not let that opportunity pass. I have to say this, I have not read The Jungle. It's here in somewhere in one of my bookshelves, and I do plan to read it at one point. So I'll probably read The Jungle first, and then I'll read Oil. The reason why I got this novel, it's a pretty long novel, I think it's a little bit longer than The Jungle even, is because I'm a really big fan of the movie, and I want to see where that whole story came from. So that's the first one that I have. Then the same day I was able to find this one by Kurt Vonnegut. It's titled Wampitters, Foma and Granfalloons. I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. At the same library they have this book also for $1. I was like, I am a huge Vonnegut fan. I haven't read him in a very long time, but at one point when I was in college I went through a phase and I started reading all of his novels basically. I'm missing 4 of them. Galapagos, Time, Quake, Hocus Pocus, and one of the first novels that he wrote, I can't remember which one it is. I think it's probably Player Piano or one of those. I'll just share this with you. My favorite so far is Cat's Cradle, but then I haven't read Galapagos, which many people consider to be his best or his masterpiece. So I don't know, that opinion might change. I really enjoyed Cat's Cradle. I really enjoyed Breakfast of Champions. I liked Slaughterhouse-Five, of course. But then this one is a collection of opinions, as it says in the cover. It has many addresses at colleges, for instance, many speeches that he gave. There's an essay on Madame Blavatsky. I'm interested in all those sorts of theories and stuff like that. Reflections on My Own Death. It has many also interviews and things like that. So some miscellaneous writings from Vonnegut. So I thought that would be fun to try, and it was only $1 anyway. So that works for me. Then I have The Hour of the Star by Clarice Lispector. Clarice Lispector is one of my favorite authors. She is just a pleasure to read because she is very difficult to compare with anybody else. She is so quote-unquote original. It's very difficult to speak of originality in authors, but if anyone deserves to be called an original author, Clarice Lispector is one of them. The Hour of the Star is one of her best novels from the ones that I have read. I have read Agua Viva, The Passion According to G.H., I want to say. I can't remember the letters, but that's the one. And her first novel, also Close to the Wild Heart, which is the one that I enjoyed the most. The Hour of the Star is one of those novels that I've read in Spanish but not in English, and when I had to read it I checked out a copy from the library, and I never really bought a copy of this, so I just wanted to have a physical copy. I got this one at Half Price Books, so it was half price, $6.49 plus tax, and the copy looks great. It looks like it hasn't been read, so I really appreciate that. Then I have The True Deceiver by Tove Jansson. I recently read the summer book, which I highly recommend. Her books are usually very short and very easy to read. The summer book is about the relationship between a little girl and her grandmother. This one also features a sort of relationship between a younger woman and an older one. but I haven't really read a lot of the back cover description. There are some novels that I just really like to get into, you know. I don't want the back cover description to sort of condition my reading or something like that. There are some books that you cannot avoid knowing something about, but when there's a book that I'm for some reason interested in, somebody recommended it or something, and I just happen to know nothing about it, sometimes I just go into the book, you know, without any predispositions or anything like that. So I'm trying to do that with this one. I also got this volume of Perrault's fairy tales. It's a collection. It has 12 tales, but only 8 of them are actually written by Perrault. It was very quite affordable, $2.99 at Half Price Books, and it has many of the classics, you know, like Sleeping Beauty, Tom Thumb, you know, Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, Bluebeard, Donkey Skin, and then other stories. For instance, Beauty and the Beast is one of the stories that is not actually by Perrault, but it's included there. This edition is published by Wordsworth, which, as you know, publishes affordable editions of books. I don't have many from them because they're more popular in the UK, not so much here in the US, though you can still find them here. But I thought, you know, I'd like to have a physical copy of Perrault, and this helps. I don't know how accurate the versions are. I have not really gone into that, but it helps, you know, and it gives me versions of Perrault's tales. Next, I have this one I also got at Half Price Books for $6.99. This is Raise the Red Lantern by Su Tong. Chinese literature is not really my forte. I have read some of the most famous authors like Mo Yan, you know, Gao Xinjiang, Ma Jian, but really I haven't read a lot of Chinese literature, and most of the time you'll see that the Chinese literature that I have read is many times because some movie is based on it, right? For instance, I recently read the story of Kyuju, which is based on a film. It's the story that the film by Zhang Yimou is based on. And as you probably know, Zhang Yimou also has Raised the Red Lantern, this story about this young woman who becomes the third concubine of a man. And this book has that novella and a couple of others too. It has 3 novellas: Raise the Red Lantern, 1934 Escapes, and Opium Family. So I really want to read the one that the movie is based on, but I want to check out other stuff too by the same author, so that I can say, you know, that I know a little bit more about him, or that I have experienced his work a little bit more. Then I have Epitaph of a Small Winner by Machado de Assis. I see a little bit of a Brazilian theme going on here. It's completely accidental. These are the books that I found. I had been looking for this one and for Raise the Red Lantern too for a very long time. This one I also got at Half Price Books for $6. Machado de Assis is one of those authors who seem to be incredibly ahead of their times. This novel, which you may also know as The Posthumous Memoirs of Bras Cubas, that is the actual title. This Epitaph of a Small Winner is a title that they came up with for this particular English edition. This was published in 1881, and it's one of those books that people really enjoyed reading from a postmodernist perspective. It's, as I said, way ahead of its time. It's written in small, not paragraphs really, but small chapters, and it's very experimental, right? So it's one of those books that I had on my mental list of works to check out. The newest translation in English is the one published by Penguin, and as I said, it's titled The Posthumous Memoirs of Bras Cubas, which is closer to the original title in Portuguese. Now, I didn't see anything wrong with this translation, and I'm not the kind of person who has to read the latest translation of a book, unless, of course, there's a problem with the previous translations. For instance, if I know that a translation is abridged, or that it has been censored or something like that, then yes, I will look for a newer one. But in this case, I decided to go with what was available to me at the moment, and that's why I got this older translation of that book. Then I also got from the internet, I think this one I got from Amazon or from ABE Books, this third volume of Hermann Hesse's short stories published in Spanish by the publishing house Alianza. I really liked these editions. Unfortunately, they don't exist anymore. Right now, they publish one volume of Hermann Hesse's selected stories. This was a more complete collection of, I don't think all of his stories are included, but most of them, and it was in 4 volumes. I had volume 1, which I read many years ago, and this is volume 3. I don't know why I'm speaking in the past here. I am a big fan of Hermann Hesse, but I went through a phase also with him. I read a lot of his works also when I was in college. Damien Steppenwolf, Journey to the East. I have not read Narcissus and Goldmund. I have not read The Glass Bead Game, so those are in my mental list of books that I need to read. I also read Siddhartha, of course. But I want to experience his short stories. You know, not many people read Hermann Hesse's short stories. I think these days not many people read Hermann Hesse, but you know, it's one of those things. I want to see him as a short story writer, and hopefully this book will give me more of that than what I got from volume 1. And then finally, this is the one that I treated myself with, because this one was almost $30 when you factor in the tax and the shipping and handling and stuff like that. This is Paul Schrader's Transcendental Style in Film, this classic study where he looks at the films of Yasujiro Ozu and Robert Bresson and Carl Theodor Dreyer in this context, I guess you would say, of what he calls transcendental film. He has wonderful ideas about it. He has a very, very well-constructed theory of what transcendental film means. So I was really pleasantly surprised by this book. I like his ideas. I like the approach of transcendental film, and I think if I ever make a film, it's one of my dreams, I would probably follow many of the steps, many of the approaches that he mentions in this book. This is probably from this whole pile of books, actually, yes, it is the only one that I have finished reading. I just finished reading it a couple of days ago, and I highly recommend it if you're interested in the connection between spirituality and film, between the transcendent and film. It's a great introduction to how to look at films from a more spiritual perspective and what it means for a film to try to express the transcendent in images. So anyway, that was my little book, bundle description. These are the books that I bought last month, and I just wanted to share with you some of these so that maybe you'll be inspired to read any of these books. If you're interested in more information about them, as I said, I have not gotten to reading them yet, but I will eventually. So let me know if you're interested in any one of these, and I will be more than happy to add my 2 cents on it in a future video. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful day.